Hey everyone, well, I guess there's nobody here yet, but I'm sure people will show up. There's a cattail. So today I'm going to start. With the basics of battle map making, and we're going to start all the way from just with basically nothing. So I'm going to start here, creating Photoshop. I haven't done this in a while. So one thing I think if you get into this, and I am going to be using Photoshop today, is that if you do this for a while, you're going to get templates set up, and you're going to get things done so that you don't have to every time reinvent the wheel. But we're going to go ahead and start like this. All right, so those of you who know, and I know this is larger than you need. Like I could do a higher resolution of a smaller map, but I always make mine 50 by 50 inches. But as the caveat to that, you have to use a lower resolution. So if I were to use we'll say even like a quarter of that, theoretically I could up my resolution by a ton. So do like a 5 by 5 inches, or 10 by 10 inches or something like that. Then multiply the resolution by 5. So do that at 350 or whatever pixels per inch. So we're going to go ahead and start here. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this obnoxious background layer and delete it. So let's go ahead and do a brief tutorial of what the setup looks like. Hey, what's up, Zev? I guess I could have just said that, huh? So over here on the left, these are my tools. Really the only, out of all these different things that you can turn on, occasionally I'll turn on some of these, but the big thing you want to always have on is layers. Hey, welcome, Order. So you want to make sure that you keep those on. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do, and this is really important, is we're going to start a new guide layout. So here under View, New Guide Layout, and we're going to make it 50 by 50, because this is going to be 50 by 50 inch map. So we're going to make sure that we have this on. Now this doesn't always stay on, and sometimes I'll turn it off, but you really kind of need to know, keep it there, or know what you want. If you're working like a different resolution, like a 20 by 20 inch map, you can make your guide layouts like that. So new guide layout, and then do 20 by 20, and then you would have 20 by, blah. So you all get it. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find some assets. So I'm literally starting from scratch here on this particular map. So what I'm going to... Give me just a second. Of course, whenever I'm live streaming, suddenly I can't figure out how to work my computer. We'll just do it in Firefox. Everything on here. So we're going to find some assets. So today I'm going to start off with making like a little a forest village type deal. And to find assets. So for that, what are the things we're going to need to have a little forest village? So we're going to need some houses or cabins. We're going to need some trees. If it's in the deep woods, we might want some mushrooms or something in there. And we're definitely going to need grass and dirt. So I already found some dirt textures that I found using this exact same technique. And then I found a water texture that I might use. Let's go ahead and jump in. So the way we do that, we're going to go to, we're going to type in Dungini, and then we're going to type in what we want. So So we're going to type in Dungini tree. We're going to go by images. All right, and here are some of the trees that have popped up. So always whenever you're looking at this stuff, make sure and look at the resolution. So that's 512 by 512, which is fine. Bigger is always, well, not always, typically always going to be better. So we're going to go here. Let's just go ahead and a bunch of junk in here, right? Desktop. We're looking for these ones that are PNGs that have no background. So this is actually a good one. Whenever you see ones that already have some shading around them, I like to avoid those because I always add my own shading to things, so that's just going to mess it up. In fact, it looks like this one did. Yeah. So that one, the resolution isn't very good on that. Let's see. Yep, that one does too. Yeah, well, this one has the shading, but I'm going to grab it anyway. I might just have to delete that stuff out here in a few minutes whenever I get around to using that. Yeah, we kind of need a dead tree, although I know from experience removing this shading is just really, really obnoxious. So you can apply your own. And there's the cat. Let's see. Let's take a fallen tree. Why not take a fallen tree? Stump. Whoops. Addition in here, saw this one. Grab that guy too. Alright, so we have several trees that we've gotten, so now let's go ahead and grab some mushrooms, just because mushrooms are fun. Everybody loves mushrooms, right? On your battle maps. Alright, so, and once we start making the battle map, we can play around with some other things. Let's go ahead and do grass. So I have, and the final product of what we do here today isn't going to look exactly like my battle maps because I'm going to be using literally assets that I'm finding as we go. So you see this is 773 by 544. This isn't near big enough for the size that I have, but we're going to do a little bit of duplication on that. And I can show you how to join maps if you're like if you have duplicate files. Now here's one. I really love this texture, and not only is it big, but this is a texture that you can use to both you can use it both as grass, or if shaded correctly, it'll look like really thick jungle or forest. So, and I've used it in the backdrop, like when I'm doing my high, like wind or not wind, sky maps for like flying ships and stuff like that. This also, it could look like a forest from far away. So this one has a lot of utility. It's really good texture. All right, so, and I'm going to cover one more thing. If you are trying to find stuff for a professional map, or you just want to avoid usage rights issues, anything you find on Dungini, this is all considered to be in the public domain. So just so you guys know that. If you're trying to find things not on Dungini, so you can do grass texture, and then when you're searching for it, go here to tools, usage rights, labeled for reuse with modification. So you still need to visit the individual sources. so that you can figure out what their terms of agreement are, but this is how you start that. So these are all things that I could grab and I could use as a part of textures or making my own assets, and I wouldn't have to worry about getting sued or anything like that. Like, this is all open for, now make sure and verify that yourself, but by visiting the actual website. Don't just grab it, visit the website, and usually they'll have somewhere in here there will be links. Yeah, there we go. Pixabay license, so you'll need to look at the license on that. Alright, so we have so far, I already had dirt and water, and we grabbed some grass. We need some roofs still, so let's grab some roofs. Let's go to Dungenie House. Oops. Roof? Oh, that's right. This little tool's still on. We can turn that off. So... Alright, so let's find... This is a pretty standard cabin. You'll see a lot of people who make these maps. A lot of them use this roof. Let me see if there's any others that... Oh, there's like... Yeah, if we wanted a little thatched hut. That looks kind of... I think... Let's see if he's even here. The person who requested this was talking about a druid village. This is... If I were to do a druid village, I would probably use something like this. So yeah, the more you replicate the exact same tile and use it in a single map, the sort of less good it's gonna look. But all right, so we have that roof, still have a cat in my way. See if there's any others I want to grab here. Try a cabin. Well, there's a cabin. Yeah, that looks a little bit too digital for me. I usually like stuff that look a little bit more dirty. But actually, we could dirty this up ourselves a little bit. That's fine. We'll just grab it. Alright, so we have all that stuff. So let's go back into here. And I'm going to go ahead and take, so this is going to be my palette right here. And let's go ahead and view, let's make it large icons so we can kind of see what they are. Now I'm going to put this over on my second monitor so I can drag and drop these images as I want them. So you're not going to see that part, but this window is still going to be up. So let's talk about the basics of how I do actually I create maps. So there's a lot of people, or well, I don't know, a lot of people, you can kind of tell the styles of different map makers. Some people are additive map makers, which means they'll start with like a texture, like a dirt texture, and then their grass and everything else is they'll use these tools over here. They'll use brushes and things like, and filters and things like that to actually add things as they go. Yeah, and you see my huge cartography library there. Like this kind of stuff. I'm not going to use this stuff. This isn't how I make my maps. I do everything through, predominantly all my main layers through subtraction. So I add all of my textures, and then I subtract the things I don't want. And then I'll add my little objects on top, but sometimes I'll subtract pieces of those as well. So I think as I go on, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So let's start from the bottom. My bottommost layer of all the time is going to be whatever I'm using for water. I don't even know if I'm going to use water in this particular map, but if we have a village in the woods, like, it just seems like water, whether it's a little pond or something like that, is just kind of a no-brainer. Now this little texture is not going to get me really far. It's kind of a low resolution texture, not near as nice as the one that I normally use. But we'll play with it here real quick. And whenever I'm doing these things, so I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Rasterize layer, and then rasterize the layer once you have it in there, and then duplicate. And once you duplicate, you can, boom. Then Control E is going to merge the two, and then I can just kind of redo this. Now the problem is when you're doing this, because this is going to set these bars next to each other, is you might have little gaps in there, as I found out the hard way before. So one way to tell is to create a layer down here at the bottom right, and then this will, yeah, see, you'll be able to see against this black background what's going on. So I'm going to show you how to merge these things. Now this isn't going to hold up to really hardcore inspection, but just at a base if you want to join some things. So you click on this little clone stamp tool, Alt and then left click will select a thing, select a place, and then it's going to copy whatever was there. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. There we go. So now I can smooth out these borders between the two, right? And it's going to make it look continuous, especially if it's, so if your players get really up close, like when you have it in Roll20, if they're focusing, they might notice this little, as you can see, how it's a little blurred right there. But especially if players are just kind of going through stuff, it'll get rid of that really, this line, you know, that feels really, really unnatural. So we're going to do that real quick. All right, so now we have this map, or this water, and duplicate this again. There might be, and you know, Photoshop, the thing that's crazy about Photoshop is there's literally just a million ways to do everything. Like if you want to do a particular thing, there's which is where I guess skill in Photoshop comes in. There's always many different ways of doing that one single function. So now we're going to merge these, Control E, and then we're going to clear guide, and then we're going to, how long have I been going? Minute 18? Okay. We'll have this map finished within an hour, by the way, very, very easily. And then after that, we can either play around with it and make some other stuff, or we can do whatever we want. So here we have some water as our underlayer, and I'm just going to, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of drag that and make it cover the entire thing. Let's see. How bad is that going to look when it gets pretty close? That's not terrible. And then anytime you have something that's a little distorted like that, if you want to sharpen it a little bit, go to Filters, Sharpen. You can sharpen more. And really what this is doing is pixelating a little bit, but that's okay. And we're going to go here to more brightness contrast. And you can mess with that. Contrast is also going to help it make a little, yeah, make it kind of stand out a little bit. And then over here, hue and saturation, if you want to desaturate it or make it more saturated, whatever, you can do all those things. So that's going to be my bottom layer. Now we're going to go ahead and grab some dirt. So this is a dirt texture I've used a lot in the past. Now, because we're going to probably end up doing some stuff on the edges of this and adding some effects, I'm going to go ahead and actually make the texture larger than the canvas so that things don't bleed in, and that's something you'll find out later if you do this enough. Once again, I'm going to go to Filter, Sharpen. Let's sharpen this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. I like that. Alright, so now we have dirt, and then as you're doing this, rasterize your layers once you're done working with them, unless you want to play around with stuff. So now we're going to need to do our grass. So let's get our grass in here. Let's see how stretchy this grass is going to be. Because I know the resolution wasn't very good. Yeah, that's going to be kind of hard to... Wow. Alright, we're going to have to do similar to what we did with the water. We're going to have to kind of duplicate this and go up Yeah, and order, yeah, see, don't know how long ago you said that. And yeah, I've seen people who use overlays and have tried doing that. But that's also a pretty big differentiator in my style versus other people's. Like you can tell when people use, if you want to do like a blue layer or something like that, or a satin, and then toss it over on top of like some ground and then mess with the colors or put some patterns. I mean, you can definitely do that. But I really like the art. I really like these textures as they're used for these things. And then there's and there's some other cool water textures out there too, like crashing waves and stuff like that. And I've played around with like maybe making those myself at some point. I just haven't really got to that point where it's been important enough that I wanted to do that. So now we're going to hide these because I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to kind of look and see how bad you can tell that these are squares. It's not too bad, but I'm going to do what I did before too. I'm going to do a clone stamp, and I'm just going to kind of smooth this out. Stretch this thing. It's not going to be the best quality, but it'll be workable, I think. Pixelate that a little bit. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we have our dirt, our water, our grass, our dirt, and our water. So let's start placing some assets here real quick. If we want to have anything higher or lower. We can actually, if we wanted to make like a cliff or something like that, I'll have to do the cliffs, like my nicer cliffs. Those are assets by Ron Pepper MD on DeviantArt, I believe is his name. I'll have to do that again or go through that sometime, but that's its own whole kind of thing. So for this, let's go ahead. Do we want to have any cliffs? I mean, it always seems like it's more fun to have some elevation in your maps when you can. At least that's where I am at the moment. Yeah, why not? Now we're going to see, and so it looks like there's not much going on here, but what we can do is if we take this off, we can go to our dirt copy. So here are the primary, you're about to learn the primary effects that I use in my maps. I use drop shadows and inner shadows. So for drop shadows, and okay, so there's actually texture that's still outside of my canvas. It's kind of messing with me at the moment, so I just copied and pasted it to a new layer because it was just what I could see. It won't have the rest of it in there, but then that's going to be its own little thing too. Yeah, there we go. So now distance. How far away is the shadow, spread, and then size. Inner shadow. And this inner shadow is really where we kind of make it feel like it has depth. This is how we do that. And then unless you want to get into the advanced cliffs and using all those, this is just kind of the cheap and easy way to do it. And then our grass, we're going to take this little eraser tool, drop the hardness to 0, so it's got a nice, and hardness, so just so you guys know, hardness, if I drop it to 100, it's going to look very like cookie cutter came out. If we do this, then we can drop this and just kind of pull it away, or push it away. So this is kind of what I meant when I talked about how I do this everything subtractive instead of additive. So I add these things and then I subtract the things I don't want. So now it looks like we've got to have a little cliff here. If you really want to make that more, if you want to kind of highlight that a little bit, you always go to your lower layers, especially when it's the same kinds of textures, and you take a little black here and you just kind of barely make it a shade darker, so that this is, and if you want to accentuate that more, we can even go to here and go to brightness and make this just a little brighter, just a little bit, so you have a different, looks different between the two. Alright, so now we have a little cliff running along here. Let's go ahead and add, some of our little huts. So whenever we're adding these, I always make a new folder. So buildings or trees, and over time, if you do this and you keep your stuff organized, it'll be really helpful to you, because then you'll be able to decide what you don't want, or if you remember, oh hey, I have a bunch of this type of thing in another file that I did in a different map, then you can come in and just grab that folder and toss it into your new project. So I'm going to delete, this already has shadows, and the reason why you don't want to keep those shadows in there is when you try to apply your own, you're going to be applying shadows, inner and outer shadows, based upon the shadows that are already in these assets. So it's best to just go ahead and take them out, if you can do so easily. And so you can see that. So if I wanted to be really anal retentive and go in here and like delete some of these out, I could. I'm not even going to worry about it for this purposes though. So remember those little guide layouts we had earlier? So this is where these come important again. So each of these is an inch, and in Roll20 or in whatever virtual tabletop you're using, if you use my maps, each of these represents 9 feet, or 5 feet. So we need to make sure that these make sense. So how big should these huts be? Like maybe 10 feet? And that's not a very big hut though, is it? So let's go ahead and do this. There we go. That's a bigger hut. So people could actually fit inside that. And then you can also make like walls. I can show you how to do that if you want to have like an interior layer of something like this. Find a wood texture and then, or mud texture, and then make the walls, and then have a floor inside and all that stuff. Alright, so we're going to duplicate this hut, and we're going to make some more of these, but if you hit Control T, you can free transform. I'm going to kind of move these around a little bit so that it doesn't look as much like the exact same hut. It is, but if we flip it around different ways, maybe make the size a little variable, don't have to worry as much about these looking like the exact same thing. And you can even, so Control T to free transform. You can even like vertical. And yeah, so these already have light put on them too, which is an issue sometimes. And we're gonna deal with that ourselves. We're gonna kind of, there's some ways around that. See, so since these are, let's go back to our guide layouts. Since these are roughly, so 5, 10, 15. So somewhere between 15 and 20 feet in diameter. So this village, let's see, maybe four to six people could live in each. So we're at, if you wanted to, so this will be a pretty small little forest village. But if these guys are actually druids, that's actually, there shouldn't be too many of them, right? Some of them will be little commoners and all that stuff. So now I'm going to go over here and Control E to merge all of these. Alright. So now we have a little village. Now when we're doing this, we're going to want a path in and out of this thing. So we want to make sure it's not a complete circle. Maybe open it up a little bit. I'm already seeing, it just looks to me like we are going to need to have a river in here. It's just going to look better if we do. Maybe we'll move this over here. Oh, there we go. I like that. Alright, so for our river, let's have a little river coming through here. A happy little river. And these things are going to look better if you spend a little bit more time. I'm going a little fast here, just trying to get this knocked out. Let's see, 1:30. So yeah, we still have said we could do this in an hour. I think we're still on track. So here's where our beautiful water comes in, and then just like the last time with the cliffs, we're going to take, except I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I'm going to pull back. Oops. Pull back some of this grass from the river to give us a feeling of elevation. This is a bank. Now, I'm not going to want the feeling that this is quite as high as the cliffs above, but I can use those same effects that I already applied and just toss them on this layer as well, and then tone them down a little bit. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Take this, and then take this layer, copy layer, paste, and so you see it's a little harsh though, because I mean that the upper cliffs to be quite a bit larger. So we're going to drop these to like maybe half. And then same for this drop shadow. Let's go ahead and okay, there we go. Now we have kind of a cool looking river, bright little river. Now this darkness that's going on over here, this is actually maybe too dark. There we go. Alright, so now we have buildings, and we're going to want this, so those shadows, let's do something about that. The big thing is we're really just going to use an inner shadow that kind of overpowers theirs. So there is that one that's already there, but then if you make yours more powerful, then it's going to be the one that's seen. Also, so it depends upon what maps you're going for. One of the people that is on battle maps, D&D maps, and fantasy maps sent he always does a very strong like inner glow, black inner glow, to differentiate the objects from the background. Oh, not that strong. But sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends upon how I feel about the map and what I want it to look like. Let's see, 24. So I'll make them look a little. Like they're standing up there. Okay. some huts. Just for computer performance, I do not have an amazing computer. So for computer performance, if you turn off these effects while you're working, it'll make things go faster. So now we have buildings above buildings, so the stuff at the top is going to be seen first. It's time for what makes this a forest map, which is trees. Without these trees, this is not a forest. So I'm going to put these at the very top. That's going to be a pretty big tree, isn't it? And this sort of goes the same as the cabins. So the more you don't alter this, the more you just use the same... Whoops. I don't know where that came from. The more you use this exact same tree without modifying at all, the more cloney the more fabricated your battle map is going to look. So there's 4 of them. So after 4, let's modify the size, make it a little smaller. And if your trees are going to be a big difference in size, you're going to want to put them in different layers when you merge them. Like, so maybe have your large trees, your small trees, your medium trees in different ones. Because they shouldn't have small trees, medium trees, and large trees shouldn't have the exact same effects, so the same inner and outer shadows applied to them. They should be different. Alright. I'm kind of going crazy with the trees here, huh? But that's kind of the nature of forest, isn't it? Alright, so... see if I can easily identify where I switched. That looks like, yep, that's a medium tree. So all these are small. And then our first 4 were all large. So these should all be medium trees. And larger trees are larger, so they're going to be at the top. Smaller ones are going to be at the bottom. Alright, so we did those trees. Let's look at some other trees. We want to use this one? Sure, we'll use that one. Additionally, if you want to make your trees, let's go through this real quick. If you want to make your trees look a little bit different, even beyond what we've already done, so we can see which ones we got here. So let's take these. Oh, we don't have any medium, small trees up here. Let's drop some over there. There we go. If you want to make these even more different and kind of stand out and look at each other, grab some of them. And then go up here to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and just change the hue just slightly. So I'm going to up the saturation so I can see what my hue is going to be. So we can make them like over here, or we can make them even more green, whatever we want to do. But just change it up slightly. And then the hue and saturation. And that's just going to make them stand out from the rest. Right? And then we can do that with these too if we wanted to grab some of these. Hue saturation. Just change the hue just a little bit. There we go. Just to make them stand out. Make it look like we kind of have some variation in there. So now let's go to these trees. It's a big guy there. So is this going to be? It's going to be medium. And oh yeah, and these are just Control C, Control V to copy. Very easily. Once again, if we want to rasterize that, we want to change the color on some of these a little bit. Just grab some of them. Huge saturation. Just saturate them a little more. I'll just do that. And you can desaturate too, especially if you want it to be a winter setting. You're going to want to desaturate some things. All right. So now, let's see, we have that. All right, let's deal with one of these trees that already has some shadows on it. Kind of looks more, maybe like a bush almost, but we're gonna rasterize it. We're gonna go over here to our wands. We're gonna figure out the tolerance we want. That seems to actually be exactly what we want right there. That'll work. All right, so let's take this guy. It's gonna be a large tree. Let's see how just large that is. Let's see, that's gonna be, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that means it'll be a nice sized tree. And then when you're DMing, you can, players can be, hey, can I move through this? Oh yeah, it's just a trunk. Or you can be like, no, it's low to the ground and there's a huge brush you can't pass. So you can figure out how you want to do that when you're DMing. So now I'm trying to get I'm not sure if I want to mess with that or not. That looks like it might be a pain. Let's find out. How painful are you going to be, sir? Oh, damn. So yeah, if you hold shift while you're using this little wand tool, it adds all of those things. This looks like something we want to use. Really doesn't. Not using that one. Alright. Are there any more trees? Yeah, we don't have any pine trees in here. I guess those are supposed to be fir, I think. Let's go ahead and just stick with what we have for the moment. Alright. So we have that stuff. And sometimes I'll name this tree layer vegetation, because sometimes I'll add some things other than that. Other than just trees. For example, we're going to add some mushrooms, because mushrooms are fun. Although we're going to take these mushrooms and we're going to put these mushrooms below the building layer. Well, that's going to be a problem if we wanted to have buildings above this cliff up here. Things could start getting a little wonky. We might have to move these buildings like up here. We can go ahead and do that right now, actually. Since none of the buildings are overlaying. But this way, if we were to move these up, they would sit out on top of that cliff. Alright, mushrooms. Just grab some mushrooms, toss them throughout the map. Add a little bit of variety here. We've got about 15 minutes. We're looking good. For an hour. Yeah, and we could go on. We could do some other stuff with this map, but this will be an hour worth of work. All right. So mushrooms. Let's do, and we can mess with the mushrooms too if we wanted to. If we wanted to, like, let's change their hue a little bit. If we want them to be green, to be kind of reddish and look a little evilish, we can do that. Have some evil mushrooms because it's D&D, so why not? And then here's some these mushrooms. Let's get some of these guys in here too. Alright, so the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I don't want their shadows. I want to insert my own. These are purple. I like the purple because it stands out amid all of this other stuff. Alright, so now we have a couple of things left to do is adding some paths and then adding some variation to our textures and making sure that this all just doesn't look I've not been keeping an eye on chat. Order the Malevolent Emboss. So the Malevolent Emboss is basically a inner shadow on one side, an inner shadow that's a dark shadow on one side, and then a light inner shadow on the other side. But it's the exact function, just duplicated on either side. And so doing these inner shadows just on one side is like having just the dark shadow without the light. And it gives you some control and lets you like kind of figure out how you want to make the distance look. Just your own little thing. Alright, so mushrooms. So we have these. Alright, so now let's go ahead and add our shadows real quick. So we're going to do some really, really mild shadows here. Might not do inner shadows at all. We'll see. We'll see how this looks. Just really barely any shadows. Yeah, I like that. I'll keep that. Then copy layer style, and we can toss it on these ones up here to make them look the same. Alright, so we're going to start with that, and then now let's go, whoops. Do something with these trees. So these trees do inner layer style, so these need to be vamped up a little bit. Oops, that's too much. I also might do an inner glow here, just a mild inner glow, just to help differentiate these from the background. Let's see if I like this. No, leave that off. Drop shadow. There we go, that's better. I'm gonna take that same, yeah, that inner shadow is just too dark. It's just standing out too much. Drop that from 70 to 50, and then, alright, there we go. And then duplicate, it's a copy layer style. Alright, folks, now this is starting to look like a forest. Now these drop shadows are just too big. think we might have some residual. Yeah, we do. Those big trees that I added in, I didn't get all the shadow, and so it's so it's messing with that shadow layer. That'll happen. Oh, and now I'm grabbing other or deleting other stuff I didn't mean to delete. Oh. This is once again subtractive layers. This is why I call it my style subtractive, because I make mistakes and then end up having to delete things. Alright, and also my computer's slowing down because I've got too many effects on at once. So, I'm in a time crunch here. Jeopardy of going past my hour. No! Okay. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go to my asset collection that I normally use, and I'm going to grab some trees that look big, or for the big trees. Let's see, which ones do we want? Which ones that I like? Yeah, I have one where I've removed the shadows off that thing, but because that's its own kind of deal. And you can also make trees in Photoshop using their functions, by the way. That is possible. It's something I'm still working with. I'm working on that and figuring out how I like the style and how I like the way they look. So it's not quite perfect yet for me, but oh, here we go. We can do some large pine trees. That'll be perfect. Let's Control T to quick transform those. Just another reminder. It's a really fun function that I use a lot. Alright, so now, there we go. So there we have our four. So the last thing that we need that I like to add into these is paths. So if we wanted to add, and if we want to add like firewood or a campfire or something over here, we could, but I like to use paths. So there's paths. For paths, we're going to go to this this image, this tall grass, and we're going to go here and we're going to grab this guy, this eraser tool, and we're going to set it large at first, because we're going to kind of, there's not going to be a bunch of grass in the village like this gets walked on and stuff. So in most villages you're not going to have a ton of grass there in the middle. We're also going to put a little path here to the water, because they're probably going to visit that a lot, maybe even two if you want. Over here, so and here's where if we wanted to add a bridge right there. We could in the meantime. So these are paths that are regularly passed. Now we want to add more paths, but we don't want them to be this harsh because these are going to be really harsh looking on people's eyes. So we want to add paths. We want to add opacity. So we want this to be 50%. And so now we can kind of make these little paths that kind of wind. These are game paths or less traveled. And kind of make these in here. Make these go around, and if you want to even have like a lower opacity, you can do that too. Oops, that's what I want. Go up here. So there we go. Looks like people pass through. All right. So the last thing for these paths is that now we want to go actually make a path layer. This is what I do. So my path layer, I'm going to add additional emphasis on the paths. I'm going to do that by using. So it's round tool, medium size, hardness is 0, and I'm actually going to have, I'm not sure if that's the one that I want. Yeah, there we go, one of these. We're going to just draw, and it can be clumsy because this is going to be turned down so low in transparency that you're almost not going to be able to see it. Like your eye will be able to see it, but really just barely. So you can be a little clumsy because people aren't going to be able to focus on this very easily. It's really hard in my maps. You'll be able to see them now that you know what I'm talking about. Now that one, that might be a little bit too much. That's a little bit too reckless there. Let's see. Just kind of following the path. All right, and then now we can actually make this a little bit bigger. I'll kind of just do this in the village right there. All right, now we're going to take this and we're going to turn this path really super low. And if you're doing it so that the darker or the lighter the texture that it's on top of, the less this has to be. So if this were like a snowscape, this opacity would need to be like 5%. And then we can even drop, that's even more, yeah. And so you can see what I'm talking about now. Like if I turn it off, you know it's there, but when you're looking for it, like you can just barely tell that there's some shadow in there. And then now we're actually going to do something real quick. We're going to take, just like we made those paths, I'm going to turn this opacity down to 25%, and we're just going to mess with the grass here. And just make it so the grass isn't streamlined. So we want to make it look a little different in some places. So we'll just delete just a little bit, just 25% of it to reveal, just barely reveal like some of the dirt underneath. And it'll just add a little bit of variation to this texture. So it looks like it's kind of a woods, you know. There's the grass is thicker in different thicknesses in different places. It's not all uniform. And then the very last thing we're going to do, so I have this path layer, right? So we're going to do something similar with another tool. So this tool, it's a brush, and this is a standard one that comes in Photoshop. Let's see if I can, there we go. Kyle's Spatter Brushes. Maybe another one. Yeah, that's the one I like. There we go. So we're going to take this and we're going to just kind of like just mess it around the map. Just gonna mess it around the map. All right. The only place we don't want this is on our crystal clear water, because it'll mess that up. So here, once we're done with that, we're going to go over here to our dirt, and we're going to delete that to make sure that there's none sitting on the water. And we're going to go here to the spatter layer. And I usually call this debris. That's what I like to call it. You can name it whatever you want. on, of course. And then we're going to make this just really, really low. Like you can barely tell it's there, but it's there. And if you delete it, you'll know. And when you're like zoomed in, you'll see these little things that are just kind of catching your eye. But it just kind of makes this look more like less like something that was digitally created and more like something that a person made. It makes it look more organic, I guess is the way I would describe it. So now, 201. All right, well, I'm about there. So here's what we have right now. So we have a little village. We have some trees and mushrooms. We have a place for a bridge. We have a place for a fireplace. I'm going to make one. So I'm going to do something about those. Well, no, those roofs, I guess they look fine. Is everything on? Yep. So there's our little village that we made. Anyway, well, that's I can save this and toss it in Imager, just so you guys can kind of check it out and see the final quality. Whenever you're saving, don't forget that Roll20 at least wants it to be under 10 megabytes. Right, and then, then there's also some other things like adding a little legend. Like usually I'll go to New Guide Layout, and then if you wanted to add a legend to it, up here at the very top, you could make a layer. Not a legend, it's a scale. That's what it'll be. Then we could add a little just so people know when they see your maps how big they are. Something like that. But yeah, if anybody's interested, here's the final result. I'm going to toss it in chat. So you guys can see it and download it if you want. But yeah, that from beginning to end, that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. Let's do something like this. If anybody's still paying attention in the chat, does anybody else have any requests or other things they'd like to see? I did not know that. Let's play with that real quick. Whoop. It said Alt plus delete. It's not checking about for like a specific thing. Not seeing that. Yeah, it's not working for me. It's doing something different. Aha, that is very, very true. That is still an active text layer. Nope. Not whenever I hit. Oh, there we go. That did work. Just took it a second. Aha. That is neat. I will remember that for future reference. Alt plus delete will fill it. Selected area with the color. Nice. But yeah, anyway, that's this particular map, and then there's lots of other things to do. Is turning this stuff into like winter maps, advanced cliffs, doing stuff on the inside, and making like interiors with an exterior type deal. Like there's lots of other places to go. A lot of different fun map stuff that can be done. This cat was just live stream a picture of my cat's butt. Seems like what's going on here. All right, well. Oh, well, we just had someone someone join as I'm ready to call it done unless y'all have any other requests. All right, well, I guess I am like 5 second delay. I should give y'all a second to respond in chat, huh? All right, y'all. Well, thank you for watching. I will definitely set a call or through the same channels. Probably do another one in the next week or two, and look at some of the other requests people made and see if there are any of those that I can easily fulfill. But yeah, all right. Well, thanks everybody, and I'll see you all next time.